All right, ready to roll? So I'd like to call this Finance Committee meeting to order. First item we have is assignment for request for council actions. We have 1810 budget amendments, 1811 expenditure over 15,000, advances police department, 1812 expenditure for general liability insurance, USI Midwest, 1813 fair housing agreement, Medina County Fair Housing, 1814 MOU for transit services, 1815 income tax ordinance update, 1816 expenditure over 15,000 Sturgis Construction Parks, 1817 Green Road Cemetery, Halliburton Wall, 1818 expenditure for Wingfoot Tire System Service, and Streets and Sidewalks Committee has one item, 1819 Mid-Street Crosswalk Safety and Historic District. We have 1810 budget amendments. We have 2018 003 Medina Girls Softball Association, renovate Greenwood Park Fields. Who wants to take this one?
I'll take it.
Jim.
This was a check from Medina Girls Softball Association that the purchase order just went to the Board of Control. They gave us a little more than half the cost to renovate the 2 baseball fields at Fred Greenwood Park. So I'd like to recommend that we do that. They've been great to work with, and it's good to see them continue to contribute.
To approve.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. 2018-002 Building Department Commercial Plans Review.
I got it.
Okay, you got it, Keith?
I talked to Dan about this one. We had approved purchase orders for these for the year at Board of Control, but in order to clear those purchase orders, we have to have enough appropriation on the line. So we're pulling this down from straight time because some of it's going to come from carry forward once we get there.
Okay.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. 1811 expenditure over 15,000 advances for the police department. Chief?
This is for ammunition and equipment for the police department through advances.
Question?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. 1812 expenditure for general liability insurance for USI Midwest. Keith?
We put this request through because we normally end up having this as a addendum now, and we'd rather have it approved in advance.
So we haven't had the bill, we haven't received the bill yet? This is,
I don't believe so.
okay, so this is, so it may be the 131 or something. It won't be the 145?
We hope not.
Because my next question is, do we shop around for something else?
Yeah, the law department shops the insurance.
Okay. All right.
Other questions?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. 1813 fair housing agreement fiscal year 2017 CDBG.
Yes, this is in conjunction, a requirement of our PY17 CDBG allocation grant. We have to have fair housing, and we want to enter an agreement, as we have in past years, with the Medina County Fair Housing Office to conduct these services on our behalf for our grant. The service is $5,000, and that comes out of the CDBG grant dollars. The emergency clause is requested because the contract, the current one, runs through the end of February, and we would like this one in place right away so it can be a seamless movement into the next year's, into this year's.
Questions?
Move to approve with the emergency clause.
Second, including emergency clause?
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. 1814 MOU for the transit services. Jonathan, is this you again?
Yeah, I can address, this is mainly, I can talk about the CDBG funds. So with the grant, this time the PY17 is a 2-year allocation grant. The previous years it's been 1 year. So with 2, we're basically out of the CDBG funds is the typical $11,250 for 18 and 19 coming out of the CDBG grant dollars. And then that's coupled with the city's general fund dollars, the $33,750, for a total of $45,000 each year to help fund the Medina County Transit.
And is this conditioned upon or not conditioned upon, or we know what the county's puts in? I think, you know, other community, or the county at least, every year.
I don't believe that there's any difference.
Of what they're gonna put towards it?
That they, I believe they're still putting in the same amount. I don't know, Mayor, if you know anything different.
That's my understanding, that the split is still the same.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
And then the emergency clause is requested because the current transit agreement, MOU, expired on December 31st of 17, so I'd like to get that reenacted right away.
Is everybody okay still funding the transit?
My question is, can we do it for 2 years? Do we have to do it for 1 year? I understand they have to budget it for 2 years, but can we pass an ordinance to spend 2018 and 2019?
We're only allowed to budget appropriate for one year.
That's what I thought.
We're not like the state.
Well, but it's an agreement, so you can do.
You sign multi-year contracts.
I know,
all
but
the
we're
time.
only allowed to appropriate for each year. That's what his question was. So we can,
Well, if we're voting on the MOU and not appropriating the money, then, yeah, I can see that, but if we have to appropriate the money, this has to be separated.
Well, the CDBG dollars are a grant that we've already approved that's pre-funded.
Right, but the
So-
general fund money,
General fund money would be
Right.
not me, so.
Have we done this in the past for?
Not for 2 years, I don't
Huh?
think. Not for 2 years. The first time it's a 2-year.
I mean, I guess the question would be, the only risk you'd run is if a whole new council gets on and wants to,
And there's not an intervening election, so that's not a very big risk.
right? So,
hey, we could all hit the lottery.
You feel better passing it with the 45 for the 2018, we'll just tell them to do it again in 2019, and be back down here a year from now.
It'd be cleaner.
I mean, I understand Paul's point. I mean, I think the state has a 2-year budget, but we don't.
Right.
Excuse me, are they gonna pay the whole thing this year, or are they gonna pay the 45 this year and then the other 45 next year?
For the CDBG allocation part.
Because usually it's just- this is
one-
just for
one
the
grant,
purchase order.
So the 11,250 per year probably needs to be agreed to and made legal so that it can be consistent with the grant. So we can say, we have dedicated these dollars out of the 2-year CDBG grant
Right.
at least.
Mhm.
I think it's better.
Mhm. I mean, the only way it would change is if we change our mind next year.
True. I don't see us not funding this, but still.
That's the risk. Is there a motion?
Move to approve with the emergency clause for funding it for 2 years.
Second, including emergency clause?
Any further discussions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. 1815 income tax ordinance update. This is interesting. Keith, is this you?
I think Greg,
Greg,
you want to address
Keith?
this, or you already did?
I contacted the attorney, who is in-house counsel for Rita on Friday and talked to her again today. Rita is funding and paying for litigation that was filed in the Lorraine County Court of Common Pleas to challenge the scope and breadth of the state law that essentially takes over the collection of municipal income tax. There are quite a number of municipalities that have joined in that lawsuit. The law firm that is representing Rita is Todd Hunt's law firm, Walter and Halberfield. And as you know, I work pretty closely with Todd on a variety of municipal issues. My recommendation would be for us to join in that litigation and challenge this state law. The injunction hearing is scheduled for this Friday, and so if you vote to approve this, that's enough authority for me to tell Todd that we can be added as a client, to be included as part of this injunction, and then we can pass the ordinance with respect to agreeing to the firm's representation of us in that case at a later date. The attorney for Rita advised that there are some definitional changes that she would recommend we adopt in our income tax ordinance. She emailed those to me today. I'm gonna have to figure out how to incorporate those into our ordinance. I don't know if you looked at the ordinance, but it's about a half-inch thick, so figuring out where to put these changes is gonna take a little time. She also advised that if we don't pass these changes by January 30th, that will be okay. This will be for the 2018 collection year, so we have a little time to incorporate these changes. So I have the changes that I received in my email, and I'll have to start looking at how to change our ordinance to change some of the definitions that Rita is telling us need to be changed. I would recommend to you that we join in the litigation challenging the state law. There is similar litigation to the Lorraine County case pending in Franklin County, which is some of the information you have in your packet. But those are different municipalities that are joined together to litigate the issue in Franklin County. This kind of litigation is similar to the cell tower litigation that we are challenging with respect to the state's attempt to take over what traditionally has been municipal home rule authorities. If you recall, the state of Ohio was telling us that we have to allow small cell towers on our own light posts, and then telling us how much we're allowed to charge for it. There seems to be a philosophy amongst the legislators at the state of Ohio level that in order to streamline, they can do it better by taking away municipal home rule authorities and putting it all under their umbrella because they know better than we do. And I think that they're overstepping their authority and that it's worth litigating these issues because I believe that it's important for us to preserve our home rule authority.
So the question I have for you is, so these changes are a direct result mainly to deal with the state taking over the collections of the net profit tax?
Correct, in part. The other part is taking over collection of,
And this Friday hearing for the injunction would be to stay that until a decision is made?
correct. So that the issue as to the balance of authority on these questions can be decided by the court.
And so this is the issue that I brought up of trying to, if it did go forward, figuring a way to provide a grant for the local businesses to have them pay their net profit tax to the city rather than the state if it failed, I guess, if the injunction failed or if the court case failed in stopping them from picking away at our ability to collect our own local taxes.
So, question?
No, I just wanted to talk like you. I just felt like I was on a roll and you were doing it, so I wanted to try it out.
One lawyer to another.
To see how that went.
That's scary, one lawyer to another.
So,
What's scarier is
I guess, what do people think about that? What do you think about that?
I would follow the law director's recommendation that we join the litigation.
I agree.
I agree.
I'm agreeing with that.
So you need us to pass the authorization for you to join the litigation?
If you vote on that, then I will contact Attorney Hunt, let him know that we're going to sign on. He'll send us an agreement that the mayor will need to have authority to sign. At that point, we'll need to draft an ordinance that formally gives the mayor that authority. And but we will be a part of the lawsuit once I call Todd.
Okay.
And you're in agreement also, Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I'll make a motion to join the litigation that's been, a group is formed to oppose the state collecting local income taxes with the emergency clause.
My second includes the emergency clause.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? We're joining.
In the meantime, I'll try to sort out what on earth we do with all these definitional changes, which if you look at it, it will absolutely cross your eyes.
Okay. 1816, expenditure of $15,000 to Sturgis Construction for the Parks Department. Jansen?
Thank you. This is a continuation of our dugout replacement project that we started back in 2015. So far, we've rebuilt 14 dugouts that were all built by volunteers. The 3 dugouts at Fred Greenwood Park were, well, the 3 fields, I should say, 6 total dugouts, were in very bad shape and needed to be raised. So this is to reconstruct those. Originally, back in 2015, we got quotes on the project. Sturgis Construction worked with us on the design. They were the most reasonable, and the only increase they have is the increase for cost of materials.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any further questions?
I just need the mayor's signature on the specifications as well on this one.
Is your motion?
Motion includes the mayor's signature for the specs.
That's my second, does.
Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. 1817, Spring Grove Cemetery Columbarium Wall. Jansen?
Thank you. Back in 2005, the Spring Grove Cemetery built a columbarium wall over at our reflecting pond. Had a capacity of 120 niche. Of those, we've sold all of them except 9. They're currently available in the bottom row. We're in the process of working with Benke and Associates, landscape contractor, or landscape design architects on our master plan at Spring Grove. And part of that, we've identified that we have a dire need for more cremation space. So there's kind of a 2-part project. One is this request to build a new columbarium wall at the reflecting pond. The second is to start a new in-ground cremain section, which we can do with our existing budget and staff, as we've done before with our new section 19 and 20 at the cemetery. This request is to work with Benke and Associates on designing and writing specifications, as well as preparing all bid documents for the construction of our second wall, which will be identical to the first wall that was created. And the site has been identified, and I included it with the request. Kind of to the eastern part of the reflecting pond. We chose this location because the land is kind of contoured in our favor, and has good ingress and egress for equipment and things of that nature. I was told by the design firm that once we get approval, by the time we get everything out and get it out to bid, it would be potentially August, September before things are ready to move forward. I got this quote back in early December. And part of the project, I talked with Pat Engineering that we'll be doing the stormwater pollution prevention plan with a separate contract, probably Cunningham Associates, as well as a geotechnical report for the project. When the original columbarium wall was built in 2005, there was an ordinance passed that I included with the request, and the goal of that ordinance was to potentially fund the building of the second wall, third and fourth, and so on and so forth. When niches are sold in the wall, 53% goes to the cemetery improvement fund for any potential building projects, including the columbarium wall. 30% goes to perpetual ordinary care, and then the remaining 17% goes into the operating fund. Whenever we sell those or inter individuals in those niche, 100% of the interment fees goes to the operating fund. So we have a balance to date of $53,000 in that fund to be used for this project that's here. So the total project estimate based on the architect is $68,000. It is substantially more than what we paid for the first Columbarium wall, but then again, that was 13 years ago. And I guess when moving forward with this, there will be a second request where we'll have to reevaluate our prices moving forward for the Columbarium niches, so that in the future, we can plan to have, hopefully have enough funds to be closer to building a third one as well.
So the 15,000, where's that coming from?
I put that down as to be determined, because I didn't necessarily feel that it should come out of our carry forward for the cemetery, because we have a number of other capital improvement projects that we have to do. And with the funds from the niche sales going into the operating fund, it is something that will continue to pay itself back, essentially.
So you're saying you'd rather borrow the money or do an advance from the general fund and pay it back through the sale of the...
It's not an advance, it's an appropriation in the general fund.
Well, I guess it'd be a loan, it'd be appropriation, but we want to get paid back, so we have to word the ordinance that we would get paid back from the monies being sold, so that we're not just giving 15,000 from the general fund without any reimbursement. We could set
want
the
to do
ordinance.
it, we want to do a note, and then when they sell the new.
Well, then you're gonna have to raise the fees a lot, because we paid for the first one. The idea being that when we were done, we would have money for the second one.
Right.
We're a little bit short.
Right.
Now, if you want with the second one, the sales to not only pay for the third one, which I assume you're gonna want, but also to repay the $15,000 for
The second.
the second one.
Right.
Then you're gonna have to increase the costs, increase what we charge by enough to cover both of those things.
So that begs the question, then, should we approve this without raising the fees, or should we talk about raising the fees and then approve this?
We have I guess, a solution, because we want to get the next wall built, because there is a demand for people to get it. They just don't have the desire to purchase a niche that's on the bottom row at this point. Up until we changed the decoration rules for the reflecting pond, we barely sold any on the bottom row. We've since then changed the rules for decorations at the Columbarium wall, that you have to place them behind the wall rather than on the ground, because that was deterring a lot of people from purchasing them. What my recommendation would be is that we keep the price the same for the existing wall, raise the price once the new one is completed, so that there's an incentive to still purchase at the old wall for cost savings, or pay a little bit more for, to go into the new wall. We didn't talk about this at the cemetery commission. I know Teresa's here as well as Jerry.
Well, I mean, Keith just makes a good point. I mean, you'd have to raise it enough so you'd have enough money to build the third one. Otherwise, there'd be enough money to build the third one. Because if you kept pushing it down the road, then at the last one, you would be short and we'd have to cover the cost.
Last time the fees were adjusted at the cemetery was 2012, the last increase that we had.
Yes, Teresa?
With respect, I just want to make a clarification. The Friends of the Cemetery actually built the first wall and gave it to the city, with the understanding that a percentage of those sales would be saved so that the city could build the second one. So
Gotcha.
the city did not build the first
Okay.
wall. The Friends of the Cemetery did in 2005.
Thanks for the clarification. So, I guess the question would be, we'd still want to do the note and pay it back and then determine what the fee should be prior to the end of the construction of the second wall.
Okay, if that's what you want to do, then you need to replace the $15,000 appropriation here with a $15,000 appropriation on general fund, not this 0210 cemetery account, but the general administration account advances out, and then make the entire $68,000 appropriation in the upper line, A21-230, and that will be the advance to cover it, and then you're going to have to take up those rates and raise it by enough to bring in an additional $30,000 on this set of sales, because you need to bring in the $15,000 that you were short the first time and the $15,000 to repay for the first one. And then that's probably also something,
Where are you coming up with 30 versus 15?
because you need to repay the 15 for construction of number 2, plus you need an extra $15,000 saved up towards number 3, because you were 15,000 short.
we don't know.
Yeah, we don't know.
Number three.
Three's probably gonna be a lot more, just like this, there's gonna be
Well,
an increase.
and that was the next thing I was gonna say, is as the years go on, you need to probably look at this and have an inflationary increase each year, but you, I mean, you've got 30 you need right off the bat. 15 to repay for number 2 and 15.
Well, the first 15 is gonna be used to prepay the wall one, and then, you're right, the fees have to be raised to make the estimated cost of this wall 68,000, which is, the estimated cost of the third wall is gonna be more than that.
So then it's even more than 30.
Right, that's right.
And you got, when you got your 120 niches, it's not that difficult as far as,
Figure it
you know.
out.
It's gonna be,
So the question is, it looks like Mr. Shields has to have a meeting, which is your favorite, to talk about what the cost should be, because you're right, it's gonna be more, if there's 120 in here, so the question is, you take 120 divided by 68, which you probably add a cost of living adjustment for the future years of maybe 75, so 75 divided by 120 is probably your cost per one. Now, the question is there a point where it's cost prohibitive for people to use it?
That's where that's where you run into, you know,
Maybe we could look into how the percentages were decided, the cost splitting.
Yeah, because maybe the cost thing has to be readjusted
Yeah.
possibly.
Can we ask Teresa that? How they come up with those percentages?
Do you, I don't know if you remember, do you remember?
How they came up with the
That's
Not to put you on the
625.
spot.
It's been a while ago.
Probably in our minutes.
Because what is it, where is it right now per one? Is it how much?
53%.
No, how much does it cost?
$950.
$950.
$950? All right, so
you wanna buy one?
are you saying? So 625 would be, if it's 75,000, 625 would be the allocated share. So that would put it around 1250 if we get 53%, or somewhere around there, $1,200. So the cost would have to go to $1,200 from $900. to cover
versus
costs.
the in-ground, I didn't bring
The function of the other 2 funds that get money from this, the 30% that goes to perpetual ordinary care, that's care for the cemetery as a whole. So
Correct.
you have costs there. And then the 17% that goes to the general fund is operations, which, again, there are costs there, because when we sell them, you know, Jansen has people down at the cemetery that take those payments, discuss with people, show them what they can purchase, and all that. And then, like Jansen mentioned, the internments all go to operating, because those are paying an operating cost of sending a person out there to open and close.
Well, I just took $75,000 divided by 120, and it's 625. So that's the new number that needs to be allocated, whether it be an increase in fees or a readjustment in the allocation of the 100% cost. Because you're doing 900, so there could be probably a little both, a little increase in fees and a little bit of a reallocation. But that's up to the cemetery commission to determine what the reallocation they're willing to accept. Jerry, you okay with that?
I didn't hear you.
Thanks, Jerry. But I think there's going to have to be both, an increase in
What it
the,
is.
an increase in the fees associated with it, there's going to have to be some type of reallocation of the disbursement of those monies when somebody purchases one.
Right,
It has to be both for it to work. So, I guess, if the cemetery commission look at a recommendation of some combination of that, and then we'll talk about it in the Jim's Committee of Public Properties, or maybe do it simultaneously, I don't know. It'd be probably easier, I don't know if it could be both a commission meeting with the public properties meeting to solve all at once, instead of rehashing it over and over again. I mean, that's up to you.
For what it's worth, I would be opposed to a reallocation that certainly that took anything away from perpetual care. The care of the reflecting pool is not a low-cost item, and the idea of this fund is that the earnings on this fund are supposed to cover it in perpetuity, and we're never gonna be anywhere close to enough money to actually do that. So to reduce it even further would be, in my opinion, not a wise decision.
Well, what's perpetual care's 30%?
That's up to the administration, not the finance department. We'll determine whether the allocation needs to be adjusted.
Well, the cemetery commission will make a recommendation.
Right, exactly.
And then we'll make a determination of if we like the fee or not, because then we're approving him a law.
Right.
So I guess the question would be, I think we're kind of comfortable to know that we would pay for this wall for 15,000. But the third wall is the issue. And so some solution has to come up with the third wall in order to pay for it, because there may not be enough money. Yes, Jerry?
It means I didn't hear what you said, I'm probably repeating you, but basically, in turnings,
that's the word you use, putting somebody in the can and putting it in there, that doesn't cost very much. So the percentage of money that is costing per month to buy that niche, more of that percentage should go towards the next one, because the cost factor is minimal compared to digging and burying somebody in the ground. So if I understand it right, 53%
Currently,
goes towards the next one.
yes.
That should probably be raised considerably, so the next one would be paid for.
But
Not so
Keith's,
much
Keith's point was, he brought up is the reflecting pond that's in the center, somebody's gotta pay to upkeep that. That's what the perpetual care fund covers, is the cost of the continuing care, as he's saying, of the pond,
Actually, the Friends pay for the care of the pond
currently.
currently, yes.
I was gonna say the perpetual care, my understanding is the perpetual care for
The whole,
the
whole
whole
cemetery.
Oh, the whole
cemetery.
cemetery, not just the pond.
Not just the pond, but it's everything in the cemetery, the roads that people get in there on. And the point is where we're at financially, it's never gonna be,
No, I guess we're not gonna solve that tonight.
Can we make a recommendation to take it to the next cemetery commission meeting in February, and then we'll put in a separate request
To talk about
to
it.
address it?
Yes, your problem's solved, we're just thinking ahead.
Always.
And I think it's a good idea to have, a public properties meeting with the
Yeah, we can do
commission.
that. We can do it at the same time. We want to do a joint meeting.
It'd probably be more beneficial, because then you can get all the issues out there. Okay, so do you know that, do you understand,
I will not be there.
They're talking
That's
behind your
what we're
back.
gonna ask.
do you have a motion, you know how to word the motion? Because Keith gave you the indication how to word it.
Can, sorry to interject,
Oh.
can we include that the mayor signed the agreement on this one as well?
Always, we will help you out.
Been down that road before.
So you want to do a note, it all comes from the 821 account. but you
it's not
should
a note, it's an advance.
Advance from the general fund to the 821 account, $15,000 to be paid back out of the fee generation from the 821 account would reimburse the 001 general account, not this number. What, is it just 01,
0707-56615.
you got that?
No.
0707-516-59?
56615.
We usually don't.
You're close.
Yeah, you'll put the account numbers in.
I can't even understand what you're talking about.
That's good, and you do this all the time.
707.
56615.
Right.
So an advance from the general fund to 821, Keith?
Yes, from this account. The 001-0707-56615.
From, so we're approving the advance?
Yes, together with the motion.
Okay, so I'm going to make the motion that we proceed with building a second calvarium wall. We're going to do it as an advance from the general fund, from the, is it the 821 account, Keith?
To the 821.
The 821 account from the 001-0707-56615.
For the 68,000?
The appropriation in 821 is 68,000,
Yes,
and the appropriation on the advance outline in general is 15.
correct. So 15's coming, 15,000's coming from the 001-0707-56615. 15,000's coming out of that, as an advance to the 821, blah, 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 blah.
And the second part of the motion is that the mayor, for the mayor to sign the specifications.
That's for
Second.
Okay. Any other questions? Everybody feel good about that? Better? Okay, good. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, 18018 expenditure to Wingfoot Tire Systems, a service department. This must be Mr. Pacoli.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is the request purchase supplies rather from Wingfoot Tire Systems for the sanitation department. This company is a full-service tire operation, selling retreads, new. They assess and evaluate our current tire fleets, handle the same with free delivery and pickup. The city's been served well. They did shop prices, and this should take care of the needs through the calendar year for sanitation.
Questions?
Would you approve?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Discussion and approval, both, for the MCRC sponsorships batch number 2, with something to hold up evidently. Mike?
Thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, this is the second batch of sponsors for the sponsorship program at the rec. These were approved last week with the rec advisory board on Thursday, and they will also be on the school agenda for tonight.
Where are they going to be hung again?
These are two on the, they're going to be the track railing banner, one of the bulkheads, which is, you can see from the lower concourse looking up, it's actually a soffit. And then the other is the track railing pads that we have around the pillars that go along around the track.
Now, these are annually, so each year they'd either be,
One's a 3-year, one's a 1-year, and the other one is a 2-year. So they're
2-year.
split based on what your, how long the,
and you said you had color renditions?
oh, I'm sorry, yeah, they're all going to be in the green, red, yellow, and black, like all the other 3 were. And
I thought they were skinny.
Can-
Makes
can
sense.
you email?
They're not in color.
There, yeah, there.
Yours,
Mine are. Oh,
Mine
the
are.
individual one there. If you
Oh.
look at the individual.
I see. Okay, any other questions?
Yeah, I've got a question. You have, like in the case for Grizzly Tire, 1080 assumes paying in full. Why wouldn't they pay in full? Or is this like paying in full with one check or 12 installments? How do you mean that?
Right, if they don't pay in full, then it actually costs them more per year. He gives them a discount for doing the one, you know, if it's a 3-year, 4-year, or, I'm sorry, 2-year, 3-year, there's a discount for adding.
But this is a 1 year, so they have to pay in full.
Right, yeah, this one they will.
But, okay, but pay in full at one time, or do they pay like in monthly or quarterly installments?
Right, this would be paying in full at one time.
Okay, and if they pay in installments, what would it be?
It would cost more. I don't know what his price ratio is on that. We'd have to talk to Mark, but we'll get all those numbers afterwards. In fact, this is the profit, this is the revenue, gross profit. This doesn't include the expense of making the ads and having them installed. That all gets subtracted off the previous total, so.
Okay, so could, maybe the next time you bring this to us, you show us what the net would be and what?
He won't know what the expenses are until it's approved, and then he goes and has the, or look down and how much it will cost him. But I can give it to you after.
Interesting. Okay, you know that he charges before he knows what it's gonna cost him. Okay. What a way to run a business.
Questions?
No, but I'm going to abstain since my employer receives part of the proceeds here.
I don't think we have to.
We don't have to vote on anything?
Just discussion.
It's just to
Oh,
keep you
I thought we had
informed.
to approve.
Said
I
approval.
thought we approved it last
Yeah, I
time.
thought we had to
Yeah,
approve.
I thought we already approved them.
Well, you could do a motion to approve.
I think this is the second batch, I don't know. if-
Yeah, this is the second batch. We definitely approved the first batch through finance.
Yeah,
Did you?
we did, yep.
Okay, and that's what the sponsorship agreement says, that it comes back to the Board of Education and to the council each time. Because you guys wanted to have ultimate authority.
Okay, let's hear a motion.
Yes.
I make a motion to approve batch 2. Second. For the MCR sponsorship.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions?
I,
17-226, request to eliminate a sergeant, add a lieutenant. Chief.
Thank you, Mr. President. Requesting the promotion of a lieutenant and the elimination of the resulting sergeant vacancy. This will essentially take us back to our original structure from 2013 and many years prior to that, to where we will have 2 lieutenants and 7 sergeants. The reason I need to do this, if you can refer to the organizational charts that are in your packet, I have our prior organizational chart that we've been working under for the past 6 years, and then the organizational chart that I just implemented at the beginning of this year. If you can see on the left side of that, the patrol division commander currently is a sergeant, and that is the proposed new lieutenant spot. The reason I need to do this is for span of control. The 1 lieutenant right now has too great of a span of control. I need to divide that responsibility out into 2 lieutenants. I just find the need to go back to our original structure that we had prior to 2013.
I think everybody was at the meeting. Anybody have any follow-up questions? I think they was gonna monitor the costs over the years, and then make a determination to make sure we don't have to get in a situation where we have to lay anybody off, to make sure we have ahead of time to monitor that system and eliminate positions as attrition dictates. Okay.
Make a motion to eliminate one sergeant position and add a lieutenant position.
Second.
The only clarification is that the sergeant after lieutenant's promoted,
Okay.
not immediately.
Move to add a lieutenant, and then once the lieutenant position is filled, to eliminate a sergeant position.
Thank you. Thanks.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. 18009 Medina Rotary Club donation for the 9/11 Memorial.
Thank you. At Public Properties, we kind of went in depth about this request. Many years ago now, the Medina Rotary Club obtained a 8-foot piece of steel from the World Trade Center. They applied for it and received it, and it's been stored in the city since. And they kind of went round and round as to where potential memorial could go. The project's taken many different directions, and most recently, Dr. Rose here from the Rotary Club. She's been working with myself, Chief Painter, and Mayor Hanwell as to potential site location at Fire Station 1, just south of that in the open field, where there's kind of a green space with some tree plantings throughout there. And they have scaled back the memorial kind of from this big vision to a little bit smaller of a project that would fit in this space very nicely, as well as communicate the message, as well as honor those perished in the event. At Public Properties, we discussed the site, kind of discussed how the Rotary intends on funding this memorial. The estimated project is around $75,000. Kelly made us aware that the Rotary does have the money to fund the project, but their intent is to use crowdfunding and other revenue sources to fund it. So they want to be sure that they have a site secured and that they can start working with the final design as well as fundraising for the project. So it'll be basically included in your packet was an overlay of how the memorial is going to sit on the parcel. It'll have a nice arch that leads to these two towers that are made out of steel, and the beam kind of interwoven in between the two. Directly behind that monument will be a granite marker that was donated towards the project. It will be shaped like a wing, and then on the back have the names of all those who perished. The theme behind the design is kind of the curved shape, one to represent the Flight 93 that turned over Medina County, as well as the curving that's in the steel. So everything is very curvilinear with the design, and they want to construct a pavilion in close proximity to Station 1. It'll have dual purpose. Those individuals that visit the memorial can utilize the pavilion, as well as the fire station personnel for any sort of training activities. We discussed how it fit well in the area because it has a high traffic flow on Huntington. It's close relationship with fire services, as well as utilizing the existing parking lot adjacent to it. So if you have any questions, I know Dr. Lowe will be able to help me out answering them as we continue to work with them. But ultimately, we're hoping that we can get the site approved so that they can start funding, working towards funding the project, and see it to its completion.
The only thing I was going to add from Public Properties is we did move it out of the committee as a 3-0 vote, accepting the application and then accepting the donation from Rotary of the memorial.
Yeah.
So who's building this? Are we building it, or are they building it?
The plan here is for the Rotary to build it, and once it is completed, to gift it to the city, much like we do with the Friends of the Cemetery project.
Well, the only question that I think Greg's alluding to is being built on public property, so the public rules will have to be followed. I guess with the bidding, right? Because it's on public property. I mean, minimum wage and all that stuff like that, I would imagine.
Cemetery's public property too.
We've done stuff at the cemetery.
Yeah,
before
we
that.
said we
Oh, do we?
we said we were gonna follow the same way we did it with the cemetery.
Okay, I didn't know if they had it followed, since it's on public property. Okay.
I don't know if that was right, but I know we've done it before.
I just asked the question, I mean, there's different rules that apply to different projects. Anybody have any other additional questions, so those who didn't attend? Mark?
I did attend, but I do have one other question, or just a thought when I look at the design part of it, something to think about for that back pavilion. Let's say you are having a function there, it seems like it's gonna be tough to bring, let's say you're bringing drinks or food for a function, and maybe a little path from the back parking lot of the station might be put in, so if somebody wanna access, to bring stuff to that pavilion, maybe that's something you guys want to think about. I think it's a great location, especially next to Station 3. I was not aware of the curvature of the path to reflect the flight that went through Medina County that I actually saw that day, so I think it's a really great project. Another thing, though, is the trees up front. Are you going to try to, I mean, obviously you want to see some from the road. Are you going to try to save some of those existing trees in the, not in the wooded area, but up front? Or is that going to all be cleared out and start fresh, or how you?
No, a majority of the trees that are in here are, it's hard to tell on the overlay that was here, but there are only a handful of trees that were gonna be removed where the sidewalk is going in, and we did talk about that in the initial design. It's about, that was appealing to us because there's trees that we're trying to get established in there, and it's gonna be relatively low impact, other than the excavation for the paver walk.
And another thing I brought up, I think it would be great, and I think it was in the notes, that possibly putting a trail through some of that existing wooded area, which I think would then secure that whole property right there for future generations of a use of seeing the memorial, but actually also getting a little use on that backland. But,
It's,
Questions?
did I say Station 3?
Yeah.
Sorry, got Ward 3 in my head. Sorry about that. Station 1.
Questions? Comments?
I'll make a motion then to approve the location of the memorial next to the fire station, and then eventually accept the completed memorial.
Second, I want to thank you to the rodeo.
Rodeo.
Rotary. What a rodeo. No, for rodeo.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Huber, we don't have an executive session, do we?
No, we discussed it.
All right. That's it. Hearing nothing, anything else before finance? Hearing nothing, finance is adjourned.